what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Geek-Stew. And today, guys, welcome back to another episode of Conspiracy Theories with Ike. That's right. Today, guys, we're talking about another theory. This one's also sort of a thought experiment, sort of like Rocco's basilisk. Not sort of like it in regards to similarity, but just the fact that it is, in fact, a thought experiment that sort of has evolved into a potential conspiracy for how things work, right? But before we get into that, I want to give a special thanks to Cicada 1205 for the wonderful conspiracy theory iceberg. I always put it up right here, as always, because I want to give credit to the creators who gave me the ability to research these topics and lay these out in a format that I can use it as a resource. So, thank you so much, Cicada 1205. Don't know if you're out there. If you are, thank you again. Love to chat with you sometime. That'd be kind of a cool video, but anyhow, let's get into it. I'm excited for this one because this one talks about multiple universes, string theory, and the concept of infinite universes. These theories always are very thought-provoking and are always very interesting to talk about, but they're also very complex to try and understand and relate to people. So I sort of had to interpret some of this information, so I want to give a fair warning now that if any of this information is wrong or if I am misrepresenting it, please let me know in the comment section down below. Again, a lot of this is my interpretation of different items, topics, and information pieces, so feel free to correct me down below if I am doing something wrong. With that being said, let's get into it. Today, let's talk about quantum immortality. So as always, with all of these informations, I have to give some context. So in order for you to understand the concept of quantum immortality and some of the other concepts that we're going to talk about, we have to know about the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics. Now, I've given sort of a brief explanation about this in the past, but sort of to give some additional interpretations, if you will. Basically, the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics indicates that the interpretation implies that all possible outcomes of a quantum measurement or real-world decision is realized on a quantum level by creating a new world or universe. That new universe is created when a decision branches off from the original path. So right now, I'm making a decision to make this video, so that's one path. But there are an infinite number of other paths that could potentially happen based on differing decisions or other immeasurable or measurable items. That being said, this basically alludes to the concept of multiple universes, quantum, what's the word that they always do? String theory or whatever. So this is definitely sort of a base concept that we have to have an understanding of to kind of talk about the rest of this. So long story short, multiple world interpretations. I do something, that decision will then branch off into another world or universe, but then there's still like the original universe that's continuing on, and then every decision has another branch, and so on and so forth, until presumably we die. So yeah, that's basically what the many world interpretations is for quantum physics and the whole quantum mechanics, shindig. Now we can actually talk about quantum immortality. Quantum immortality, and this is actually going to be sort of a twofer, because quantum immortality is one part of this equation. There is an additional, I guess you could say, optional part of this story that's kind of interesting as well, but really the quantum immortality aspect of this is actually really simple. As simple as quantum physics and quantum mechanics can physically be. So basically, quantum immortality is the concept that when you die, another timeline is created in which you don't die. So on a quantum scale, you live forever because every time something happens where you die, there's another path where you don't. Now, obviously, we'll get into some of the implications of that statement, but quantum immortality basically is saying that on a grand scale, on a quantum scale to some degree or some form of relative, concept, that we are immortal because every time that we would go to die, there's another branch that splits off that says, nope, you're still alive. You didn't make the decision that caused you to die, or you didn't do X, Y, or Z that led to your death. Therefore, branch alive, branch you're dead. So Quantum immortality is basically the concept that there is a branch or a series of branches where you are immortal because you don't die. Now, obviously, if we take it at face value, that would essentially mean that we are forever going to live on a quantum scale, because there's always going to be a branching subsection of this timeline, if you will, where we don't die. So obviously, that aspect of it's a little unrealistic because there's really no way to justify that, but there's also not really a limit to the concept of quantum immortality, because it's literally talking about something on a quantum scale, which is not something we really understand or can prove yet. So anyhow, take that into consideration now. But next, we're going to talk about another thought experiment that's along these same lines that has a lot to do with quantum immortality, but it's sort of the negative aspect of it, and it's called quantum suicide. So quantum suicide is an additional thought experiment, sort of like we talked about, that is in the same vein of thought as quantum immortality. Quantum immortality talks more about the fact that anytime you would die or something would happen that would cause your death, you would branch off into another reality where you're still alive, and then continue to branch off for as infinite number of times where you would die, you would just continue to live, meaning that there is a form of quantum immortality. So this one's a little bit more complex because this sort of works off the back of Schrodinger's cat, which is the cat in the box that has like some sort of like radioactive material, and there's no way to tell if the cat's alive or dead until you open the box. And so there's sort of like kind of that concept, because there's an infinite number of universes where he's alive, infinite number of universes he's dead. I don't really know a whole lot about Schrodinger's cat, so don't ask me. But when I was doing research for this, it did often reference Schrodinger's cat, sort of the, hey, this is what this is type deal. So that being said, the simplified, and I'm talking uber simplified version of quantum suicide, and here's the issue. I don't quite understand this on a large scale. I read it, tried to boil it down for myself. I read it, tried to boil it down for myself. I read it, tried to boil it down for myself, and I continued to do that until I found a version of this that made sense to me. So keep in mind, this may be lacking in some substance because I had to make this make sense for myself in order for it to make sense for you. So the simplified version of this is that you put a gun to your head, and in an infinite number of new universes that you create when you pull the trigger, you either die or you live. Now, look it up, find your own interpretation of it, because truthfully, there's a lot more to it than just that, which we're going to kind of talk about here in a little bit, because really, that's like the bare bones of it. There's a lot of math that actually goes into this, and like a lot of statistics. There's a lot of things that are talking like, when you pull the trigger, the quantum particles are going to rotate the cylinder either clockwise or counterclockwise, and the likelihood of it misfiring or of it continuing to revolve, you can continue to pull the trigger, and there's going to be an infinite number of universes where the gun fails, but there's also an infinite number of universes that you died on that time. So trigger pull 1, you live or die. Okay? You live, trigger pull 2, you live or die. So it's sort of like an infinite version of you dying, but also an infinite version of you living. So again, there's a lot of more information and a lot more data that goes into that. So I want this to be given to you with a grain of salt, that how I'm providing it to you and how I'm relaying this information to you is very dumbed down and simplified. There's a lot more that goes into this. So the concept of quantum suicide is basically the sort of dark reality that if the infinite universes theory is true, where every time we make a decision that there is another universe, there is also infinite number of universes where we basically just continue to kill ourselves infinitely. So it's sort of like the dark side of the coin on this case, you know what I mean? The positive is that infinite number of universes that are being played out because of an infinite number of decisions that you and I make throughout our lives, but there's also that infinite number of universes where that version of you just continues to die and die and die and die and die, because of that reason. So sort of a dark, morbid thought process and thought experiment overall, not to mention the concept of living forever and a concept of immortality. It's just horrifying because there are a lot of implications and a lot of things that kind of get taken in consideration when you say quantum immortality, which is sort of what we're going to talk about next, is some of the possible implications of quantum immortality. And this is going to be pretty short because, honestly, I'm not in any way, shape, or form a physics major, but these are some things that I sort of thought about as I was going along researching quantum immortality and quantum suicide. So we covered a lot of information that honestly sometimes doesn't make sense. The concept of having this infinite number of universes that are created when decisions are made, and within that there's the concept of living forever, or the concept of dying forever, or living immortality, dying repeatedly. It's a whole concept, whole process. But there are some pretty heavy implications with the concept of quantum immortality, and realistically the concept of quantum anything. So on a quantum level, can we die? Does our consciousness exist on a quantum level? On the quantum level, do we have a physical body? Is there such a thing as a physical body on a quantum level, on that universal scale? Is that something that happens? Do we actually die, or do we actually live forever? Is it our consciousness that's specifically living? And then if you can die in real life, where does your consciousness go? Is that what it's talking about when it says quantum immortality? Because that's my thought process, is that you're not actually going to live forever, because regardless of how quantum mechanics work, we still have to live and abide by the mechanics and physics of our Earth. And one of those mechanics is that you and I have an expiration date. So I don't know if necessarily quantum mechanics can override that, because I think eventually you and I will die. I don't think there's anything truthfully immortal about us, but I think the concept of consciousness being immortal is a whole nother story. But when we get into that concept of it, then you have to kind of think to yourself, then there's no such thing as death per se. There's only the concept of physical death, because then your consciousness then lives on in the quantum realm, if you will. And then, do you or I know of these realms, / can we know of these realms? Is there ever going to be a way for us to access these realms or have any physical knowledge of these realms? Because as it is right now, you and I have no way of actually proving that there are multiple universes. There's no way of proving it. And if we could ever know it, does that somehow unlock something? Like, are we going to suddenly know about all of these things? And not to mention, when we do die and our consciousness does go, are we suddenly going to be just painfully aware? Because we talked about the prenatal quantum nightmare, where if you were not born, your consciousness still exists. In the prenatal quantum nightmare, your consciousness is aware of the fact that there are other versions of yourself that did get to exist, basically. So in this version of the conversation, does that consciousness then continue to live on after we die? And does that consciousness then become aware of the fact that there are other versions of itself that are continuing to live? And that's the part that really just kind of like fucks with me, because I'm just like, if we're led to believe that there are in fact infinite numbers of universes, if string theory is right and all of this, on a quantum level, is that where our consciousness lives? You know what I mean? Like, how does that work? What is a consciousness? So that's kind of where I'm at right now. We're going to move into final thoughts because, Jesus Christ, this is a heavy subject and has a whole lot of implications, and it opens up a lot of different doors and paths to walk down that really just kind of make you just go, mind fucking blown, dude. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, is that, you know, when you start to contemplate the concept of any kind of quantum mechanic or physics in regards to an infinite number of universes or string theory, and you start talking about quantum immortality or quantum suicide or prenatal quantum nightmare, then it opens up a lot of other things that have to be thought of. And another one I just thought of is there only one consciousness, and then that consciousness is just not aware of different parts of it existing while it's living, and then when it dies, it joins the collective consciousness? Are we all hive minds? Or is there many versions of a consciousness that then becomes aware of the other versions of consciousness? And I don't know. I'm going to stop talking because I'm starting to spiral. So let's head into final thoughts. We talked a lot about quantum everything today, and man, I think I'm never going to talk about quantum physics ever again because I don't understand it. I feel like you have to really, really, really research quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and you have to have a lot of like actual legitimate experience with this in order to really make any sense of it. That being said, it's one of those things where I sit down and I start thinking about this, and I'm like, okay, this is just starting to not make sense anymore. But honestly, though, it's a fun subject. It's a fun topic to think about, and it's really interesting, truthfully, because when you start to kind of boil down quantum physics and quantum mechanics to their bare bones, and you start to try and understand them, really all it does is open up more questions than it does give answers. So, that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did enjoy, leave us a comment down below. Let us know what you think about this whole process. Is this something that you believe in, or is this something that you could see being real? Let us know some questions you might have for me or Salsa. If you watched this week's Monday or Wednesday video, you'll know that we are postponing the 100 subscribers video until September, when I am actually going to see Salsa and hopefully get him on film, even if he is behind a mask. But that being said, should be interesting, should be fun. So continue to ask questions, get those out now, so that way we can continue to get some questions to answer for when we do the 100 subscribers video. And honestly, who knows, maybe by that point we'll have a 200 subscribers video to do at the same time. If that's the case, then we'll do something even cooler. But anyhow, if you enjoyed, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Follow us on social media, yada yada yada. If you want to join the Geek-Stew crew, let us know. Put your handle down in the comment section down below. We'll reach out to you on Twitter or Facebook, or even better, just reach out to us directly, and we will try and see if we can fit you into our programming, see what you have to offer, because we're always looking to expand our products. So stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, stay awesome, and we will see you in the next one. See ya.